guys, what's up? It's Katie and I'm back with another Marvel Contest of Champions video, and today we are continuing the Act 5 series with 5.4.1 Contact. So I'm making this Act 5 series for a few reasons. One is to re-familiarize myself with Act 5 because I get a lot of questions regarding it, and I did this content so long ago that it's kind of hard for me to remember. Also, I've got some friends who've just started playing this game, and there are a lot of new players out there looking for some Act 5 content. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to do my best to go over Act 5, the nodes, the bosses, the champs, and champ info, relevant to 2019. So the first thing that I want to do is I want to go over this spreadsheet that I have here. Now, there is a link to the spreadsheet in the description of this video. So if you have any questions about it, comments, suggestions, whatever, let me know in the comments of this video. This is an active spreadsheet, so I can make updates to it as we move on. So the way this spreadsheet works is I've got all the paths laid out now that I have done, with all the mobs you'll be facing, all the nodes, and then a description of the nodes down here. Now there's also the boss with what nodes he is noted with and a map. Now you can go ahead, click the map, download the map, use it to your advantage. You're gonna especially want to use it to your advantage with this map because this map is locked. So, and I'll go over that in a little bit more detail. So you can definitely use that spreadsheet, use it how you want. This is how the math is laid out. Now I have 5 paths laid out, and Act 5.4.1, it's a little bit more different than the acts we have faced thus far in that it doesn't have a global node and there are no keys required. However, all the paths that I have laid out, they are all noted, and the map is locked. So you cannot scout out your paths ahead of time. So definitely going to want to use this map so you know what mobs you're going to be facing and what nodes they are noted with. Now, normally I go over any path that I haven't made a video on, but the way that this map is, I have videos on all 5 paths. So when you start out right here, and you can basically pick one of 5 paths: Vitality, Power, Poison and Bleed, Rage, or Life Transfer. Now, this is a little bit deceptive because it makes it look like these nodes are present, but in reality, some may not be. So for instance, take the Poison and Bleed node. You really only need to worry about Abomination as there are technically no poison or bleed nodes. You have Enhanced Bleed and Bloodletting, that sort of thing, but there is no bleed or poison node. Okay, so then once you go through and you teleport to the last section here, you can choose whichever way you want to go. Now it's kind of like a choose your own venture when you get here. You will face at least one unnoted. You've got 2 over here with Juggernaut and Doctor Strange. So you'll have to fight at least 1 unnoted and 1 noted mob. Now the mobs, all the noted mobs on this section here, they have Bane 3. So we've all faced Bane up to this point, so we kind of know how it works, but I'll go over more of it once we face one of those mobs. Okay, now I will be going over each path in a video just basically because of how I said this map is laid out. Now, each fight though is only about 30 seconds long, and the reason for that is because if I made the fight last the whole time, this video would be 10 hours long, and let's face it, no one wants to sit through that. So let's just go ahead and take a look at path 1. Now the first mob that we come across is Karnak. Now all the mobs on this path have Life Transfer and another node. Now Life Transfer, if you don't know, is the opponent suffers a permanent degen effect, losing 2% of their max health per second, but life stealing 125% of their damage done. The life steal percentage is affected by class relationships. So you definitely want to bring in your class advantage here. So, you got a mutant, bring in a tech. You got a skill, bring in a mutant. So, and you're going to want to bring in your heavy hitters. Now, Karnak, he's not too hard. He's got Life Transfer and Enhanced Crit, so don't get hit. Now we're moving on to Loki, who has Life Transfer and buff duration. So if Mr. Steal Your Buff steals your buff, they're gonna last a lot longer. But Cap Infinity War, he is a great option for this because not only do you get the class advantage, but he hits like a truck once he's got 5 kinetic charges and that Fury. So heavy up until you get to those 5 kinetic charges, parry, go to start your heavy, launch your special 2, and watch your damage roll. Now the good thing here with life transfer is even if you make a mistake, you can still make up for it just by hitting your opponent and stealing the life. Now Gwenpool has Stupefy along with life transfer, so you're gonna want to be really wary of her. If she hits you, she's gonna stun you and most likely kill you. Domino is great for this path because not only does she hit hard, but she can also get the critical bleed to really help you out. Now, another thing to remember with Gwenpool is whenever you launch your special, remember that that may not kill her and she may come back swinging at you. It's happened to me before. Now, Yondu's got life transfer and debilitate, so his debuffs just last, you know, a little bit longer. So if you get hit by that pesky Yaka arrow, he's gonna bleed you, and that bleed is gonna last longer than normal. I decided to bring in Vision Arcus here, get some of that damage over time with the cold snap on him, but you could have really brought in anyone for this. So now we're moving on to Ghost Rider, who has power gain with life transfer. So the best way to really deal with him is to kind of keep him power locked if you can. If not, just go ahead and bait out his specials. Both of his specials are pretty easy to dodge. There are really no worries there. Just be careful with that power gain that you don't push him to a special 3. Otherwise, you could be looking at some not so goodness. But overall, not a hard fight. Cap Infinity War is great here. You could bring in Spider-Gwen as well, get that Enervate on Ghost Rider and keep him power locked along with having the class advantage. So now we're moving on to Falcon, who's got life transfer and immunity, so he is immune to all debuffs, and yes, that includes parry. So you're gonna want to bait out those heavies. This is where having a heavy hitter really comes into play, because you are going to take some block damage in baiting out those heavies. So definitely want to bring in someone that hits hard. Domino is great. Omega Red is another really good option. Namor would be fantastic too. Definitely try pushing him to his special too. So now we're moving on over to Beast, and he's got energy resistance with life transfer. So for Beast, you're not going to want to bring in someone who uses energy attacks. Bring in those ones that that do physical attacks. Cap Infinity War is good. There are a lot of really good options. Warlock is another really good option for this. Although he doesn't hit that hard, he's good for another path, and we'll go over that later on. But you've got a lot of really good options for Beast. Now, both Beast specials are pretty easy to dodge, so you don't have any worries there. So now we are moving on to OG Vision, who's got enhanced armor up. So be careful of his synthesis. I think he gets like a gain of, or excuse me, I think he gains 1 bar of power with this synthesis. So try not to push him over a bar and a half of power. Otherwise, you'll be looking at eating a special 3 very shortly. So you could also bring in someone that power locks and power drains. I just decided to bring in Arcus here to get the class advantage, but there are tons of other options here as well. If you can keep him power locked and power drained, that is the best way to do it. If not, get good at baiting out those specials. So now we are moving on to Quake, and she has stun immunity, so you're not going to be able to parry her. Just be wary of those Quake charges, those pesky Quake charges from charging her heavy, and also when she launches her specials. I prefer to push her to her special 2. It's easier to dodge than her special 1, but sometimes we're not so lucky. If you do get a Quake charge on you right before that timer is about to expire, launch your specials so that you don't get stunned. So now we're moving on to Cap World War II, and Cap World War II is unnoted, so we've moved on to the final section of the map. It's kind of like the choose your own adventure part. So he's unnoted, so really just go ahead and bring in someone with the class advantage, or really anyone will do. Bait out those special ones. If you get hit with his special 2, he can do a nasty bleed, so be wary of that. Right before the shield hits you for the special 2, dash back, and that's how you dodge the special 2. So now we're moving on to Storm, and she has Bane 3. So just remember to kind of pay attention to the Bane timer. We've been through Bane now a few times before. So, you know, you can parry and just about wait until that Bane timer is about to expire and then land your 5-hit combo. So that way the Bane is instantly transferred back to Storm. Now overall, Storm, she's not a hard champ to fight. Both her specials are pretty easy to dodge. If you have problems dodging her special 1, as soon as she goes up in the air, dash back and you will dodge that special 2. So overall, she's not that hard of a champ. She's Also doesn't have a whole lot of armor. All right, so now let's move on to path 2, which has Vigor. So for Vigor, every 15 seconds after the start of the fight, the defender regenerates 50% of base health over 5 seconds. The timer refreshes when the defender reaches intervals of 25% missing health. So any champ that nullifies or staggers, like Sim Supreme here, is really good for this path. Anyone that nullifies, so, you know, Magic, she's good. Hood is really good too. He can put that stagger on your on the opponent. I can't speak. And that'll help to prevent that regen. Megamind here, he does okay. Warlock is actually probably the best for this path, because not only does he put a passive heal block on, but he also armor breaks. And so a lot of these champs that you have on here, like Angela and some more to come, do have armor. So he's a really good option for this path if you haven't completed it yet. Plus also, if you kind of get into a bind, Warlock can regen off of his special 3. I think it's like 10% of his health. So keep that in mind. So now we're moving on to Dr. Voodoo, who has Vigor and Physical Resistance. So you're definitely going to want to bring in your heavy hitter here to kind of break through that physical resistance, or anyone that nullifies is going to be great. If you have a heal block champ, this is definitely the path to bring them. So Yondu is really good as well too. All you gotta do is whenever they're regenning, if he hits them with the last portion of his Yaka arrow, this heal block lasts for 20 seconds instead of 10 off the special 1. So now we're moving on to Wolverine, who has Vigor and enhanced abilities. So again, Yondu or Warlock would really be great for this fight, especially since he's going to be regenning more because of the enhanced abilities. So keep that in mind. Both of Wolvie's specials, they're fairly easy to dodge, so you don't have to worry too much in that aspect. X23, now she's got Vigor and Bane of Damala, and I can't really figure out why they gave her Bane of Damala, but that's neither here nor there. But again, heal blocking champs are ideal here. Vision Arcus may not be the best. I just kind of wanted to show them off a little bit. To show that you can do it without a heal block champ. It just might take a little bit longer and you might take some damage. But overall, X23, she's not a hard champ to fight. Just be careful that you don't get hit. She can put a nasty bleed on you. So now we're moving on to Superior Iron Man, who has Vigor and enhanced armor up. So again, even though Warlock would have the class disadvantage here, he would be another really good option for this because you get the heal block and you get the armor break. Now Dusa is great for this as well because she can get the armor break and stop that armor from popping up. You'll just have to deal a little bit with the regen, but it's not that bad. You guys can handle it and manage through it. I know you can. And you'll have to excuse me, I'm still getting over a con flu right now. So now we are moving on to Blade, who has Vigor and enhanced bleed. So just make sure he doesn't parry you, you don't get clipped with one of his specials and get that bleed on you, because that bleed is likely to kill you. Now, if you have a heal block champ and you hit Blade with the heal block, when he is blocking and trying to regen, hit into his power bar, he will no longer regen and he'll just waste power, which is always fantastic. If he is regenning, just hit into his block, help waste some of that power. So now we're moving on to OG Deadpool, who has Vigor and Replicate. So be careful of who you're bringing in here, because if you bring in a champ who gets a lot of buffs, OG Deadpool here is just going to replicate those buffs. Now, remember, he does heal kind of constantly in relation to his power bar. So you definitely want to bait out those specials so that he's not healing as much. And ideally, obviously, a heal block champ would work, or any damage over time champ. Now, definitely don't want to push him to his special 3. That's one nasty bleed that he gets. So now we're moving on to the third section of the map, and we've got Spider-Gwen here. Now, Spider-Gwen, she is unnoted. She's not that hard. She can be kind of tricky with the evades, and every so often that special 1 comes out of nowhere for me and clips me, which is not ideal. If you don't want to worry about that pesky evade, you can go ahead and bring in someone like Venom. So now we're moving on to Iron Fist, who has Bane 3, and overall, Iron Fist, he's not really a hard champ to fight. Just both of his specials are pretty easy to dodge, so you don't really have to worry about baiting out one over the other. Just worry about the Bane timer, and even then, it's not that bad. So bringing in a heavy hitter and someone who does damage over time is always a good option, but really anyone can do this fight. Oh, and if you have Quake, you don't even have to worry about the Bane. So now let's go ahead and take a look at path 3, which has feats of power, which is whenever the champ is above 1 bar of power, they gain a fury. When they're above 2 bars of power, they gain a precision buff. And when they're at 3 bars of power, they gain a cruelty buff. Now, Dormammu has feats of power and outlast. So, you know, he's really not that bad. Bringing in someone with the class advantage would always be beneficial here. I'm just trying to keep him power locked. That is really the best way to deal with feats of power, to be honest, is to keep them power locked, keep them at 1 or below 1 bar of power. That way you don't have to really worry too much. Magic is great for this path because you can just kind of keep them in perpetual power lock state, which is always good. Who else would work good? Oh, Cap Infinity Ward, he would be another really good option for this. Spider-Gwen too with the Innervate. And now we're moving on to Mordo, who has feats of power and enhanced special too. Now, if you're good at playing Quake, this is the path for Quake, because then you don't even really need to worry about feats of power because they will never gain power if you are, you know, if you're not like me and not that great a Quake player. But if you can play Quake, this is the path for you. Also then too, when it comes to the Bane, you don't even have to worry about the Bane because you don't gotta worry about touching them and you don't gotta worry about them touching you, and that sounded very dirty. So now we're moving on to Nebula, who has feats of power and limber, and I can't quite remember what the limber is for this, but you're probably gonna get anywhere between 5 and 10 parries off before they're not gonna stick anymore. So keep that in mind. Class advantage here is always, you know, beneficial. OG Thor, he's a great champ for this. He still hits pretty hard. Hype is another really good option for this. Even Medusa is another great one. There's really a lot of good champs that can deal with this. So now we're moving on to Magic, who has feats of power and shatter. Now, shatter is when they nullify, so if she nullifies you, she deals X damage for each effect that she nullified. So keep that in mind. Just don't get hit by her and you won't have to worry about her nullifying you whatsoever. But there are a lot of really good champs that can counter magic. We all know that Blade is the magic killer. So now we're moving on to OG Thor. Now we are in the 3rd section of the map and he is unnoted. So you don't really got to worry too much. Bringing in the class advantage here is always good. Keeping him, you know, at 1 bar of power is ideal. Pushing him to 2 bars of power can get kind of dicey. Plus that special too, if you're not great at fully dodging it, it does a ton of block damage. So be mindful of that. So now we're moving on to Doc Ock with Bane 3. And again, we've been over this. So, you know, just watch the Bane timer. Doc Ock, when he throws his heavy, his animations look like it would suggest that you need to do a double dash back, but in all actuality, you only need to dash back once. So keep that in mind. You don't have to dash back as far. Keeping him at a special 1 is ideal. I prefer to bait out those special 1s over those special 2s, mainly because the special 2s I kind of mess up on sometimes when it comes to fully dodging, and he can clip me with those big rocks. So that is no fun. All right, so now let's go ahead and take a look at path 4. So path 4 is, path 4 is the poison and bleed node. So every champ on here is going to have some form of poison or bleed. Now you're not actually going to have to bring a bleed or poison immune champ with the exception of facing Abomination. So keep that in mind, but Carnage has Mystic Ward and Enhanced Bleed, so you're not gonna be able to nullify this. Now, when I came in here, I just loaded up on all bleed and poison immune champs because I couldn't exactly remember what I was facing. And then as I started going through it, I remembered, oh yeah, it's not really the nodes. They've got things like enhanced bleed and enhanced poison. Now, Archangel does have enhanced bleed and enhanced poison. So bringing in actually a bleed champ, a bleed immune champ for this is ideal because if he does hit you, he's gonna get you with the neurotoxins and then you're just kind of gonna melt away. So be mindful of that. Now, Sentinel, he works great for this because not only is he bleed and poison immune, but you can also get those analysis charges built up. He's great against mutants, and then launch your special too and put a nasty incinerate on your opponent. Plus he has heal block as well. Now, Ant-Man has enhanced weakening and enhanced poison, so Ant-Man gets his poison off his special 2 if he's built up fatigues on you. So keep that in mind. Now, this is a marathon of a fight, I will tell you that, with the glancing, so keep that in mind. Bringing in a heavy hitter here is definitely, you know, more beneficial. Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. But Ant-Man, he's just kind of a pain in the butt when it comes to all of that glancing. So be prepared that there is a test of endurance fight and really nothing else. So now we're moving on to A-Bomb, and this is where you're going to want to have a poison control champ, or excuse me, a poison immune champ. He does have stun immunity, so you're not going to be able to parry him. So bringing in someone with good block proficiency as well is always a good option here too, because you are going to take some block damage in baiting out those heavies. Now, make sure you dodge that special 2 and don't do what I just did right there and block it. It's super easy to dodge. So now we're moving on to Guillotine with enhanced bleed and enhanced crits. Now all of Guillotine's attacks have a chance to bleed you, so be mindful of that. Both her specials are pretty easy to dodge. Her special 1 is easier than her special 2, but they're both pretty simple. Bringing in any champ here will work out well. OG Vision, he's great for this because you can just keep them power drained, and you don't got to worry about baiting out specials. Also, he's bleed in poison immune, so that kind of helps out a lot, but again, also unnecessary. You could really bring in any champ here. So now we are moving on to Deadpool X-Force. Now he has enhanced bleed and bloodletting, and this is actually kind of where it wouldn't be a bad idea to have a bleed immune champ, because he does get that power gain when he drops below 30%, where if you have him, if he is at more than 1 bar of power, he is going to go from 1 bar of power to 3 bars of power, launch that special 3, you're gonna get shot, and it's gonna be no bueno for you. So having a bleed immune champ for this specific fight is probably a good idea, so in case you do push him to the special 3, if you can't power drain him, then you don't take all that extra bleed damage. So now we're moving on to the 3rd section of the map, and this is the unnoted Juggernaut. And I prefer to keep Juggernaut power drained and power locked. That way I really don't have to worry about his unstoppable. So OG Vision, even Vision Age of Ultron is a good option for this. If you don't have either of those, but you have a Spider-Gwen or She-Hulk, they are great options for this. You'll have the class advantage, excuse me. Drop your heavy, put that slow debuff on him, and no more unstoppable for Juggernaut. So now we're moving on to Doctor Strange. Now this is the portion where there was 2 unnoted with 1 noted. So Doctor Strange, he's not that difficult. Again, try to keep him power drained just because he's always kind of constantly gaining power. And so if you do, when you do go to launch your special, make sure his armor isn't up. If his armor is up, it's not going to do as much damage than if, say, his Fury was up. So be mindful of that. You could bring in an armor break champ. That way he doesn't get it. Okay, so now we've got Cable, and he's got Bane before the boss. And I hate fighting Cable. I just don't like fighting Cable. Everyone has those champs. Cable, for me, is one of them. He gets power gain, he gets regen, and every time I fight him, I feel like he gets both of them. So, so now we've got one more path left, path 5, and this is the Rage path. So, for those of you that don't know, Rage is basically when damage taken in a single hit is capped at 2.5% max health. Now, when the damage cap is reached, a Fury buff is gained, and when 5 Fury buffs are gained, all attacks become unblockable. This is why when I say I rage at Rage, this is why. But Archangel is great for this. So Black Widow has Rage and Godslayer, but Archangel is great at this because he doesn't hit that hard, but all of his damage comes from his damage over time. So from the neurotoxins, from the poisons, and from the bleed. So he is a great option for this Rage path. Now, I brought in Havoc here to see, to show you what it would look like for Rage. So you see I pushed him to the Rage, so he's got 1 Fury buff up, and it's kind of doing okay. But Rhino, best way to play Rhino is to keep him in the corner and play him close. So now we're moving on to Miss Marvel with Rage and Enhanced Fury. Now a Quake is great for this path because you're not going to touch your opponent, so you don't have to worry about Rage. So that makes Quake fantastic for Rage. If you can play Quake, this is the path for her. Bring her in. You're gonna smoke this path. I think this path is by far the hardest path, and the life transfer is the easiest, but that's just my opinion. So now we're moving on to Punisher, who has Rage and Rolling Thunder. Now, Iceman is great for this because Iceman doesn't really hit that hard, right? A lot, like Archangel, a lot of his damage comes from his Cold Snap and from his Frostbite. Now, he will do a ton of damage with his special 2 if that armor's up, so keep that in mind. You will trigger the Rage if you launch your special 2 right here while your ice armor is up. So it did a ton of damage, but we did trigger that Rage. So honestly, the best way to play this fight with Iceman is to just constantly launch your special 1s, get those Frostbite and Cold Snaps on, and let the damage go over time. Now, Groot has Rage, Heavy-Handed, and Armor. So the thing with Rage, right, is they get the Fury buff. Now, Groot, he can gain Fury buffs. Now, those do not count towards the Rage. So let's say you trigger Rage once and see Groot got all those Furies. Those do not count towards the Rage. So you don't kind of got to worry about all of a sudden he getting all those Rage, or excuse me, all those Furies and going, oh no, he's going to become unblockable. No. Now, we're moving on to King Groot, excuse me, with Rage and Critical. Now, the thing with Rage too that I want to note is you can kind of get around it too by not only bringing in champs that don't really hit hard like Archangel or Iceman, but also by bringing in the class disadvantage because they're going to hit not as hard as what they normally do. So you can definitely kind of get around it by bringing in the class disadvantage there. So now we're bringing in Gamora, or excuse me, now we're going against Gamora, and she's got Rage and Resonance Cascade, and Archangel just kind of melts everybody with this. Gamora, you definitely want to be wary of her specials. Sometimes she just kind of launches them out of nowhere, like there's no warning, and they've clipped me once or twice. Not gonna lie. But overall, Gamora, she's not hard. Again, Archangel, if you've got a duped Archangel, bring him in. He's gonna smoke it. Star-Lord with Rage and Critical, even with the class disadvantage here with Archangel, he's going to do great. Now, excuse me, Star-Lord does have Critical, so you are going to take some block damage. He is going to be hitting pretty hard, so be mindful of that. But overall, not a hard fight. Anyone will really work that, you know, isn't going to trigger the Rage or that can put a damage over time debuff on your opponent. They're all going to be great options for this. So now we're back to the third section of the map for the 5th and final time, and we've got the unnoted OG Daredevil Classic. So the thing with OG Daredevil too is you want to be mindful of is remember that he evades all projectile hits. So, you know, be mindful of that. But if you're bringing in someone like Archangel, you're not going to have to worry about it too much. If you do have someone who throws a projectile off their special, remember to parry before you go in. So now we're moving on to Hulk with Rage 3. And again, if you can Quake, not with Rage 3, excuse me, with Bane 3. So if you can Quake, you've got this down. So Quake is great for this whole chapter, the majority of it, since if you don't have to touch them with Bane, you don't got to worry about it. You don't got to worry about it with Rage, and you don't have to worry about feats of power either. So if you can play Quake, you can pretty much beat this whole chapter. And I was like, this is actually me playing pretty good Quake style here, so we're just gonna watch it because this does not happen often. That was a shameless plug right there. But overall, not a hard fight. Remember though, with Hulk, the lower in health he gets, the harder he hits. So you want to definitely be mindful of that. If you don't have Quake to play Quake, remember with Hulk, try to bait out those special 2s over the special 1s. They're easier. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at the boss, who is Punisher 2099. Now, Punisher 29 has maximum overdrive, enhanced special 2, and he's got 2 criticals. So they had to give him 2 criticals because he kind of hits like a wet noodle, but giving him 2 criticals makes him hit like a truck. So I decided to bring in Angela here. Now, Angela can hit pretty hard. I'm trying to, but sometimes with Punisher right there, I get clipped with the tail end of that special 1. And as you can see, that does not bode well for Angela, even with her regen, because she is heal blocked right now. So nothing good came of that. But even though he has enhanced special 2, as long as you dodge that first part, the bullets will become, you'll be able to block the bullets. So it'll be all right. Ghost Rider, he's a really good option for this as well, because you can keep him power drained as long as you know how to play Ghost Rider correctly, you know, and go through his judgments that way. So you can see there, we did do a ton of damage now, or excuse me, took a ton of block damage right there. You can dodge the last portion of Punisher 2099's last little like grenade thing he throws at you, launches at you. I don't know what you want to call it. So that part there is evadable, excuse me. So dodge the first part, block all the bullets, dodge the like grenade thing. There we go, words. But Ghost Rider, he's a really good option for this as well. You're going to circle through your judgments probably 2, maybe 3 times with this fight. So be ready to do that. That way you can get, you know, 2 power drains on at least, possibly 2 damnations, get your bleed going and get your fury up, as long as you have the blade synergy to make sure that you get those as well. But overall, Punisher 29, he's really not that hard of a champ to fight. And I will show you who the best is for this right after this Ghost Rider fight, because it's gonna be pretty epic. Now, he does regen there at the end, but it's not that much of a regen, so it's nothing really to pay any attention to. So don't worry about the regen too much. So Archangel, if you bring in Archangel for the Rage Path, use Archangel for this boss fight, because he is just going to melt him, class disadvantage and all. We've got 7 neuros on him. We're at 20% health, and he is just ticking away. He's not going to get any regen. He's got the neuros on him. He's going to be stunned. Oh, one thing too about Punisher 2099 that I do want to mention is that his heavies sometimes come out of nowhere for me. They're long reaching and they will stun you. So be mindful of that. But that's it, guys. That's all that I got for Act 5.4.1 Contact. Let me know in the comments below, who did you use for Act 5.4.1 Contact? Do you think this will be useful? Are you going to use this map to scout out your past? Let me know in the comments below and let's discuss. As always, guys, thanks so much for watching. If you guys liked what you saw and you want to see more, please remember to like and subscribe. Follow me on Instagram and Twitter and hit me up in the Discord chat. Thanks, guys. Bye.